Seriously, right?
Yeah!
Wow.
We're listening to Martial Secrets with Lawrence Kane
And
Kris Wilder, who sounds suspiciously like your announcer. Hi, I'm Kris Wilder.
And I'm Lawrence Kane.
And you're listening to Martial Secrets. Today on Martial Secrets, we're going to talk about...
Nerds Gone Wild.
Yeah, Nerds Gone Wild. We're going to talk about good books. These are books that have helped us in our training. Not necessarily the ones we've written, but ones that we think that are pretty doggone good, too.
Important safety tip.
Yep, important safety tip, Egon. And then we're going to close out today with another great story in free space, and this is called It Happened at the Stadium. And we're going to talk about the difference between a professional, professional crowd and a college crowd.
Yeah, crowd that watches pro games versus college college games.
Right on. Okay, well, the Nerds Gone Wild. Let me just say this. This is the SCA. What does SCA stand for?
Society for Creative Anachronism.
Okay, which I think is just like a horrible name for anything, and it doesn't make any sense. And then the other thing too is that when I hear about this Society for Creative Anachronism, these are the ones that to me look like that old Patton Oswalt character on Reno 911, where they did the medieval stuff and everybody talked in ye's and thou's, and they got punished for using modern conveyances and all of these kinds of things. But anyway. So you swam with those. You actually had a swimming or a running of the nerds for quite a few years, didn't you?
Yeah. So this thing, that group, and there's several like it, got started. I think it was at Berkeley by some professors and
that
college.
Says a lot right there.
Yes,
yeah.
it does.
Yeah, Berkeley.
Professors and some college students who really wanted to understand more about the Middle Ages by, in a lot of ways, recreating it. And it's kind of interesting. So I've done martial arts, since I was 6. And one of the things I did was what they called heavy fighting, which is you put on real armor and you use rattan, which is a type of, well, it's really a grass, but consider it wood.
They just don't make Papasan chairs out of it.
Well, there you go. Rattan weapons. And it's a martial art. It's not really the same as Kabuto, which I also did, which is more of a classical or traditional kind of thing. But you basically you put on armor, and you go bash each other with wooden sticks.
So if I wanted to, I could say that this is similar to Kendo in the sense that you've got armor on, and you get to actually have heavy contact with people.
Absolutely. In fact, I remember getting hit in the shoulder one time. I had what's called a pauldron, which is a 16-gauge steel. Think of it like a football pad that protects your shoulder. I got hit in the shoulder hard enough, right on the point there, where I had a bruise that went down my arm almost to the elbow and across most of my chest, and it lasted about a month. It was one of those deep green, purple, nasty ones. So it's a heavy contact thing, and the folks that do that, some of them get amazingly good.
Were you wearing your armor when you got hit?
Yeah, that's what I said. The pauldron. Yeah, I was wearing armor.
No, I'm talking about that armor suit that I've seen the picture of you in. I mean,
yes.
The full-on knight armor.
Yeah, it's white. What's called white harness plate armor. It was 115 pounds worth of steel, 16 gauge steel, and just like what a very close reproduction of what the knights actually wore.
Say that again. It was an armor suit made of what? How much scale?
16 gauge steel.
All right, 16 gauge steel, and I saw that thing. It shined up really nice and pretty.
Yes, it did. The problem is it wasn't stainless steel, so I had to polish it every freaking time I used it.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Actually, just for reference, if you have a custom suit of clothes and they don't fit right, there's not a big deal. But if you have custom fitted armor and it doesn't fit right, you can't move. And for reference, this is, people think it's kind of goofy stuff, but
it's
actually
Nerds on Parade. That's like
there
I
you
said.
go.
Yeah.
I actually sold that armor to an attorney for $5,000 when I got done using it, and he's got it in his office now. I mean, it's quality museum grade kind of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, and of course that means that if it gets dented, you have to repair the dents. So you actually learn a bit about how the armor actually worked, how you wear it, how you maintain it. It's interesting stuff.
Did you wear the chainmail underneath?
I did not, because it was so heavy as it was. We had what's called a gambeson, which is a padded shirt kind of thing underneath. And in real life, they would have had mail attached at least underneath the armpits and some of the areas where there's spaces around that, but I didn't do that at the time.
Sure.
It was 115 pounds, man.
Well, see, okay, let's see. Will you pass a psychological test if you say that you strapped on 115 pounds of metal every other weekend and went out and hit other people with sticks? I don't know.
Yeah, that's maybe. That could blow a career in the FBI or something. But
well,
it's interesting actually because even though it's kind of a game, you got people who got really good at that. Kind of the equivalent of a black belt was becoming a knight. And so I was a knight. I thought I was hot stuff and everything. And it was really interesting because when I started taking Kabuto, I actually had to stop doing that. Now, partly I kind of got older and just decided I didn't really like hanging out with that crowd, but partly the difference between sport and reality really came across in that kind of game versus the Kabuto. So, for example, if you hit someone's foot, it's pretty easy to break. It's very hard to protect the entire foot and ankle against a strike from a weapon, and so it's an illegal target in the SCA. And for safety's sake, you can't hit below the knee because it's pretty easy to miss, right? Especially when you're going fast and furious. Well, the foot is a primary target in Kabuto. Because let's face it, if you get in a fight with somebody, you bash their foot, you can leave and they can't chase you, right?
Sure, makes sense.
So I was out there and at a fight practice and we're going at it, and I'd been taking Kabuto for, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 months or something like that. And I see this opening. It's a guy's foot. And I had a boar spear at the time, and I just jammed him in the foot. And right as it hit, I pulled the blow because he's wearing a boot, but I would have just crushed his foot. And I realized I'm sitting there looking at him. He's looking at me, and he's got this look on his face like, "What the hell are you doing?" And my mind was changing from doing the Kabuto to I see an open target, I take the target. Whereas in this game, there's some rules that restrain what you do for safety.
Yeah, sure.
And it was an interesting difference because they're both weapons arts. And you think guys that run around in armor and bash each other with sticks are pretty goofy, but kendo guys do that too, right? It's just a different set of rules, and it's a rattan sword versus a shinai, which is really made out of bamboo. But very similar kinds of things, and it's interesting some of the principles of power generation and movement and how a lot of these things change. When you think about it, if you're wearing armor, your body doesn't move quite normally. Your balance is different, right? The way you walk's different.
They're experiencing that in Iraq with the GIs because they're wearing their weight distribution is different because of what they're wearing today as opposed to what they were wearing in Vietnam, Korea, World War II.
Absolutely, yeah. When I work at the stadium, I wear a ballistic vest because we've actually had to take guns and knives off people on a fairly regular basis, and it doesn't weigh hardly anything. And it's concealable, it's lightweight, it's comfortable. I don't really notice I have it. That's the new generation of them.
You look pretty buff wearing it, I'll tell you that.
Well, yeah, that helps too. Yeah, I do look a little better. It'd be better if I worked out more, but it's a good sheet. But the old one I had, 15 years ago was twice as thick and was not as flexible and actually made my back hurt after wearing it for too long. So the technology progresses, but even so, the kind of vest that I wear at the stadium, a rifle round would go right through that. I mean, it wouldn't even slow it down.
Well, like a 30-06 or something?
Oh, yeah. And so, when the guys are using stuff in Iraq, it's a much higher level. What I had is what's called a Class 3A vest, which will stop most small arms fire. But, in Iraq, you're talking about mostly rifle rounds.
Well, look at us. Now, we've gone from nerds on parade now to Iraq and rifle rounds and so forth. But listen, we're going to talk more about this because I just can't let it go because I think that it's like I said, I just keep coming back to the comedian Patton Oswalt and his whole take on on what it looked like in Reno 911, and I love the scene in the TV show where he starts going on. They show up to a Dungeons and Dragons game. It's in the evening, and and they're going, what happened here? And he starts talking to him, and he starts listing off how I'm impervious to spells, I'm impervious to this and this, and they just hit him with the mace right in the face, the pepper spray, and drop him. All right, so anyway, that brings a close to Nerds on Parade, or Nerds Gone Wild, or the SCA, or whatever.
Yeah, some people do take that a lot too seriously, but it is kind of an interesting pastime for those who don't get too wrapped up in it.
This episode's training tip is a little bit different in that what we're going to talk about is actually good books that help in your martial arts training. And I'm going to go ahead and take the lead on this one here, Lawrence. And I really like The Way and the Power by Loverit. I mean, this book has been out for, I'm going to say maybe, 25, 30 years maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And it takes strategy and it explains it in the context of swordsmanship and maybe, that kind of thing, Japanese swordsmanship, maybe samurai stuff. But it's spoken in Japanese, the titles of the sections. But then he goes through and he illustrates them really well, and it's very accessible. I mean, people say, oh, you got to have the Book of Five Rings and all of that kind of, and they take it and they put it up with their Sun Tzu and they put it up on the shelf in their office and so forth, and they don't really study it, but they've read it. But this really is an accessible book. It explains what it means clearly, and then it also in the back gives great demonstrations from history. And I got to tell you, I really like the book. It's got great material in it that you can open it up, just throw that book on the floor, boom, let it open up, read whatever it says, and you can take that to the dojo and begin to apply it in your training that night. So I have to say that in regard to training tips and books, The Way and the Power by Loverit, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a great book. One of my favorites, and there's actually two of them, is Solo Training by Lauren Christensen.
Who?
Yeah, Lauren Christensen.
Who?
And that would be Lauren Christensen.
Yeah.
Hey, and we know him obviously, which is a good thing. But it's really not trying to plug it because we know him, but simply because there's just a ton of good stuff in there.
Yeah,
we talked in another podcast that folks don't practice outside the dojo enough. And sometimes one of the reasons that people don't do that is they don't really know how.
Yeah,
and that's one of the neat things.
Boy, you're right. This book really outlines it for you.
It does. It's so practical. And honestly, with that book and Bob, a body opponent bag, you've got stuff to play with for 20 years. I mean, it is an awesome collection of techniques and tips and things that can help you really take your martial arts to the next level. Yeah, well, and to top it off, Lawrence, we both know Lauren, and we know him to be a really good guy. I mean, he's a great guy, and he is, and he's also incredibly skilled. As well. Yeah. But that on top of it, it's that you're not going to get any bull from him, and that you're going to get good solid material, and he's a nice guy. So what else do you want from an author? Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And so Solo Training, and there's videos. I think there's a video that goes with both books, but there is at least one of them that goes with them too. So that sometimes makes it easier because different people, different learning styles. Personally, I'm not much of a DVD guy. I prefer the books, but a lot of people are they learn differently than me. So yeah, no question there. I gave you an opening there and you didn't take it. I know you lobbed a softball to me, and I didn't want to take it because frankly, it was just too easy. Here's a couple safety tips for you when you're working in your dojo, and this is not necessarily about how to avoid injuries or those kinds of things. This is actually about how to deal with individuals, particularly kids. And these are just a couple things. These are three things that I do, and you can choose to do them too. And I think that they're going to work out for you really well. First thing is that
this is an art that requires repositioning the body. Sometimes it's like maybe a kid will punch the wrong way. It's sort of splayed out from their body. You got to bring it back to the center line or whatever your style says. So there are those times that you got to put your hand here and you got to push there and all that kind of stuff. Here's the basic rule of thumb: always touch a hard, bony part of the body. Don't touch a soft part of the body. Don't touch the neck. When you touch the shoulder, don't touch the shoulder muscle. Touch the clavicle, where at the top of the shoulder. Don't touch the hand, but touch the knuckles. Don't touch the arm, but touch the elbow. It's a very strange thing, but psychologically, that's not a threat to touch the hard, bony parts of the body, and it just is a good policy to keep you in a, well, how do I want to put this? It just keeps you in the safe zone. Let me put it that way.
It avoids the appearance of impropriety, right? So, a lot of times, the way your dojo is laid out, parents watch the class. They've got a nice place to sit up front, where they're kind of out of the way and they can see it. But, whether folks have a viewing area or not, there's an awful lot of wonderful, really, really good martial arts instructors out there. And there's a couple of numbheads that do stupid stuff. And you don't want some kind of a misunderstanding to get you investigated by law enforcement or whatever, right?
Yeah, I'm not looking for any kind of misunderstanding. And so, as an example, I'm never in the changing room when there's a minor in the changing room. I'm never there. If something happens, I don't care if I have to stop class completely to allow that parent to go back there and fix it. I'm not interested. I'm never going to be in that changing room with a minor, just the two of us. It just isn't going to happen. And even when there's room, I'll start class late if I have to. If I can't get in there to change or whatever, I just simply will not do it. I will not be in a place where I cannot be seen in totality by the parents.
Yeah, and it's really sad that you have to worry about stuff like that. But let's face it. I taught at a technical college years ago, and our policy was, an edict says you cannot touch the students. So I was teaching computer classes back when, the computer was pretty new, and this is, people had seen war games and were worried they could destroy the world by using a computer, right? They didn't know what a mouse was. They thought it was a small animal. Back in ancient times, right? And a lot of people were having trouble double-clicking the mouse. And what I wanted to do is put my hand on their finger and help see, so they could feel it, because it was an unnatural movement. Now, I realize that younger people today are listening to me going, what are you, nuts? But, when this stuff first started, I was teaching adults. Well, okay, maybe I am nuts, but
that was an easy one too. But anyway,
yeah, I know. Well, considering what you started this podcast off with, people already think that. But the point is, it was pretty. It was an unnatural motion to double click a mouse. 20, 25 years ago when they first came out.
Yeah.
And yet I was not allowed to touch the student to do that. Well, can you imagine teaching martial arts without touching the students? You can't. It's just not possible.
Yeah, having a judo class without having contact.
Yeah, exactly. But you do have to do it in a way that doesn't look wrong. Think about some of the pins you do in judo, and if it's with somebody with the opposite sex, right?
Well, but I'll tell you what. I would train with women in the class, and I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm that guy. But I really, honestly, only saw the gi.
Me too. Absolutely. When somebody when their gis on, when their belts on, they're a martial artist. They're not male. They're not female.
Yeah,
exactly. But people who don't do this stuff, right? It's not the same.
Well, I'll say this though. There are some techniques that I didn't training in judo that I didn't do with women because there was just no need to go there. There were other ways to do it.
Right.
And so there wasn't really any need to do that. So I would say that, I did shy away from some things. But so what? What the world didn't stop turning.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's just it's even more of an issue, I think, with kids just because of the the fact that there's been some stuff in the news that's high profile, and you want to make sure that you're doing things that don't come across badly to somebody who really doesn't understand the physicality of martial arts.
Well, and then here's the third tip that I was talking about, and it's really simple. It's like lots of times, a kid's belt will come undone or they'll need some help or something, and I'll tie it. But what I do is I always make sure that I've positioned myself in front of the parents and we've turned sideways so that the parents can clearly see the gap between me and that student and where my hands are on that belt. Now, I never speak to it. I never say anything to it. I just do it that way.
Right.
And I've always done it that way since, times kind of changed, 20 years ago or whatever. I mean, you would just tie somebody's belt and think nothing of it. But this day and age, that's what I do.
Right. And the thing is, folks who've been doing martial arts for a long time are the ones who tend to be teaching. And the ones who've been doing it for a long time probably remember back in the old days when we didn't care about this stuff. So, it's just something to bring to the forefront of your mind to help make sure that you don't get in trouble doing something that's completely normal and isn't wrong, but it's taken out of context.
Oh yeah, no question. So there's your 3 important safety tips for the day, and I can't help but say thanks for the important safety tip.
Egon.
It's free space time, and this is a little place that we can do just anything that we want to do. Free space.
Well, what is our show, so we get to do it, right?
Yeah. And this is under the title of "It Happened at the Stadium," but really, what I want to get from you, Lawrence, is I want to get, because you've worked both college, university level crowd control, and you've also worked the pro games. There is a difference between these crowds. Tell us about the difference between a pro and a college game crowd.
Oh, it's night and day. But yeah, I think you can wrap it up this way. To be a college football fan, you pretty much have to have gone to college. To be a pro football fan, you pretty much have to have $50.
Ah, okay.
I mean, so, I've never had to take a gun away from somebody at a college game, although we've had some knife issues. When the Seahawks played at Husky Stadium, we had,
well, they were playing at Husky Stadium because they were building the new Quest Field.
Correct.
And they had blown up the Kingdome and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we had, we had all their games there, and so we'd sometimes have a Saturday game that was a college game followed by a Sunday game that's a pro game. Didn't happen too often, but it's a pretty good juxtaposition there, right? You got 2 different crowds, 2 different days. And, we'd have to take guns off people at Seahawks games. I took a mace away from somebody.
Are we talking about, like, concealed weapons type permit people?
Yeah. Well, not everybody had a permit, but most of them did. But, there's at least the law in Washington State is you cannot carry a firearm, or any weapon for that matter, into a stadium. And it's, it's not a Second Amendment thing. It's a prudent safety thing, right? Let's say, bad guy is attacking me legitimately and I need to shoot him. Well, there's 72,000 innocent bystanders there. If my bullet goes through the guy, I'm going to hit somebody else, right? Yeah. So, it's a prudent thing. And in most cases, it was just folks who, their brain was
and they
not
don't
in the right
they don't
place.
sell
They didn't
alcohol. They don't sell alcohol at the university games, at the college games, but they do at the pros.
Correct.
So they were actually selling alcohol on a university campus.
No, they didn't. They actually waived it in that particular case. They sold it. They did a little. They were sneaky. They set up a bunch of tents and stuff just outside, so it wasn't technically on university property, so they could get away with selling it there. So they got around it a little bit. But yeah, there were, and actually, even in the college games, there's actually places you can buy alcohol before the game or after the game, just not during the game. Not that people don't sneak it in, but the interesting thing
as a Washington State Cougar, I'm officially opposed to sneaking booze into a game.
Yeah,
that's my record.
And you have a bridge for sale too, right? Yeah,
that's my rule. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, it's really interesting though, the kind of behavior that people have. College students get drunk and stupid and do stuff, but the stuff they do is just not to the same order of stupidity as
stupid
the
kid stuff.
It's stupid kid stuff mostly.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff like the girl who got caught smoking dope in one of the porta potties. She walks out, she sees the cops waiting for her, and she drops a lit pipe down the front of her blouse, which catch us on fire.
Yeah, that's going to hurt.
Yeah, it was very entertaining, especially because the cops were trying to put it out without fondling her. It was
all right. So that's a call. So what do you see then at a pro game? Then is that behavior?
A whole order. I mean, well, first off, one of my favorite things of the pro game. We had a guy. It was a Raiders game, Raiders versus Seahawks, and the guy comes in with an actual mace, a medieval flail, the chain, the big ball with the spike on it, and the handle, real actual steel, medieval weapon, right?
Well, I mean, at the black hole, that would be acceptable.
It shouldn't be, but it probably would be.
The black hole, for you that don't know, is a certain section of the Raiders home field where, when you see all the bizarre Raider fans dressed up, that's where they're sitting.
Yeah, exactly. This is the guy with the big spiky mohawk and the oversized pads with spikes sticking out and all that. But again,
Tony. You're talking about Tony.
Yeah. Again, no weapons allowed on the stage. This guy walks right through the gate, past the ticket takers, past the cops, gets into my section, and because I.
And you're going, that is a weapon.
Yeah, well, I used to play with guys in the SDA, so I recognize this as. Wait a minute, that's a flail.
Of the episode.
Shocking, isn't it? And it's like, dude, you're taking that back to your car. Well, they'll let me in the gate with it. It doesn't matter. You're taking that back to your car now. And the head on that thing was about 3 pounds, maybe 4 pounds. I mean, this was big. But we also, so the difference in fights is a good example.
I'll bet you $100 he made that thing himself.
Could be.
I'll bet you he did.
I wouldn't take that bet.
He's probably down in his basement, crafting it in the dark of his basement underneath a big poster of Al Davis.
Chuckling as he's doing it. Cackling with glee. But, the fights are different too, right? College kids, especially, if you're wearing the opposing team's jersey, that sort of thing,
baby,
exactly.
Yeah.
It'll get fast and furious and all that, and they'll tee off on each other, but it's pretty easy to break up. Once the authorities get there, they kind of want that excuse to stop. Some of the pro fans, man, we've had stuff, where guys are going at it, and it takes cops with batons to pry them apart.
Oh yeah, sure. Turn the hose on them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we do when dogs got stuck together back in the car. Turn the hose on them. So.
Yeah, somebody who works for me actually turned the hose on the USC marching band once.
Which when I want you to get me that person's address, because I clearly need to send them a Christmas card and a small gift every year. Because if I hear that the USC bang on, doing that thing again, I am absolutely gonna just put a gun in my mouth. I
noticed they do that kind of number 2 thing. I was wondering about that.
Oh, that's Vic. That's a V for Vic. That's like when I was watching Villanova play. I looked at the V on the side. I said, "What's 5 got to do with anything?" It's like, oh, Villanova, got it. All right. Well, listen. That's a wrap for today. Let's take this thing on home. And listen, we appreciate you listening. And as always,
I'm Lawrence Kane. Be safe.
And I'm Kris Wilder. And be well. Thanks for listening.
Nice work.
Hi, this is Kris Wilder from Marshall Secrets. Marshall Secrets is free, but it's not costless. So tell your friends about Marshall Secrets. Your good words are the best endorsement we can have. Also, if you like what you hear, buy one of our books, buy one of our DVDs. We think they're pretty good, and we think you'll find value in them too. As always, we appreciate you listening and your support. You can find us pretty quickly by just going to Amazon.com, typing in Lawrence Kane or Kris Wilder, and you can find all of our books and DVDs there. Thanks for listening, and be well.